Authorities have confirmed that federal agents carried out an FBI-led operation targeting a massage business in downtown Franklin. What first appeared to be a local police raid soon expanded into a sweeping federal crackdown. The West Alabama Human Trafficking Task Force executed coordinated warrants at multiple massage parlors as part of a nationwide sweep known as Operation Coast to Coast, one of the largest multi-state crackdowns of the year. Teams from the FBI, ICE, Homeland Security, and local law enforcement joined forces in a synchronized series of raids that exposed what seemed to be legitimate wellness spas, but were, in reality, fronts for an extensive trafficking network. Behind the reception desks and dimly lit rooms, investigators discovered a hidden system built on control, deceit, and profit revelations that shocked even veteran federal agents. For months, we've been tracking illegal massage operations across Tuscaloosa and Northport, one official explained. What they uncovered painted a grim picture, a shadow economy thriving in plain sight. Before we dive into what agents actually found inside, make sure to like and subscribe because these federal investigations show just how deep organized crime can hide inside ordinary American neighborhoods. More than 60 victims, including minors, were rescued during the operation. According to the Austin Police Department, the raids led to over 30 arrests and exposed a vast system of forced labor and sexual exploitation. Officials say the organization was primarily operated by Chinese nationals who disguised their activities through wellness businesses that masked an underground network stretching across multiple states, including Alabama, Texas, California, Missouri, Oklahoma, and New York. The deeper agents looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a group of corrupt business owners. It was a corporate-style trafficking enterprise. Homeland Security investigators confirmed that victims were rotated across state lines with near-military precision. Business permits were faked, and profits were laundered through consulting firms that existed only on paper. From strip mall storefronts to busy city centers, each spa served as a single node in a multi-million-dollar criminal machine tied to international organized crime groups. Agents describe what they saw inside as industrialized exploitation. Most victims were Chinese women lured to the United States by online job ads, promising legitimate employment. Once they arrived, their passports were taken, and they were confined to the businesses, sleeping on thin mattresses behind curtains or beside massage tables. Hidden surveillance cameras tracked their every move. It's getting worse, or maybe we're just getting better at finding it, one investigator noted. Agents describe rooms filled with the smell of disinfectant and stale air, signs of people living where work never stopped. When tactical teams breached the first locations, the discovery sent shockwaves through command centers nationwide. What began as a handful of raids quickly revealed a network that spanned multiple states. In one city block, agents found 3 interconnected parlors sharing a secret hallway that led to concealed dorms. Across 20 search sites, authorities seized phones, computers, and ledgers filled with encrypted communications linking American facilitators to coordinators overseas. Officials now confirm that those encrypted messages tied directly to long-monitored Chinese organized crime syndicates. The evidence shows that what once appeared to be small-scale local crimes has evolved into a transnational trafficking operation, powered by digital payments and shell companies designed to hide its reach. Homeland Security issued a warning. Human trafficking isn't confined to border towns or major cities anymore. It's embedded in the heart of America. Every warrant served, every victim rescued, and every suspect arrested was part of a coordinated effort to dismantle an underground economy operating in plain sight. But one question still haunts investigators. How many more businesses just like these are still open tonight? Roughly half of the agencies involved specialize in targeting illicit massage networks, but officials say Operation Coast to Coast is just the beginning. Dozens of connected businesses remain under active investigation, while the Department of Justice has opened parallel financial cases tracing the money flow through shell companies registered in Hong Kong and Macau. Experts estimate that millions of dollars in illegal profit were quietly funneled offshore through fake wellness consulting accounts. One senior federal agent put it bluntly, behind every quiet storefront might be another prison built on fear. And what investigators discovered next, deep inside the seized computers, would expose just how far-reaching this operation truly was. What started as a series of local raids had now evolved into one of the largest human trafficking investigations in U.S. history. The data collected from Operation Coast to Coast revealed a vast criminal web blending exploitation, financial fraud, and international coordination. Agents confiscated encrypted smartphones, laptops, and handwritten ledgers, all documenting thousands of messages exchanged between U.S.-based middlemen and foreign handlers. These messages scheduled clients, arranged payments, and managed the rotation of victims across state lines. Digital forensics traced the communication directly to Chinese organized crime groups that federal authorities have tracked for years. Investigators describe the system as a hybrid cartel, structured like a multinational business, but operating with the secrecy of a criminal syndicate. Each so-called spa functioned both as a front business and as a site of captivity. Victims were constantly moved from city to city to prevent them from forming relationships or escaping. Many locations even shared financial systems, ownership papers, and payroll records buried under layers of shell companies in Delaware, California, and Hong Kong. The breakthrough came when analysts managed to decrypt a single phone seized during a raid in Texas. Inside, they discovered what officials now describe as the digital command hub of the entire network, a control system overseeing dozens of U.S. addresses simultaneously. That discovery triggered the synchronized raids that unfolded across multiple states. By the end of the week, 30 individuals were in custody, and over 60 victims had been rescued. The charges filed include human trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy, racketeering, and immigration fraud. These suspects used multiple identities, fake names, and prior criminal histories to hide in plain sight. An investigator stated, federal officials emphasized that this coordinated effort represents a major turning point. For the first time, prosecutors plan to apply transnational crime laws previously reserved for narcotics cartels and terror organizations to dismantle a trafficking empire. Agents described the evidence as overwhelming. Financial records showed funds wired through Hong Kong and Macau, disguised as consulting fees or property expenses. In truth, they were the profits of forced labor and sexual servitude. The laundering operation was complex. Small deposits moved between U.S. business accounts, divided into hundreds of and then reassembled overseas to avoid detection. Cyber units estimate millions of dollars flowed through this network annually, but behind the financial trail were the real victims, human beings whose lives were reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet darting the raids. Officers uncovered passports, locked in safes, shredded identification cards, and employment contracts written in Mandarin that trapped women in endless debt. Many victims had entered the country legally on student or work visas before being coerced into exploitation. Agents called it industrialized coercion disguised as employment. Among the rescued was a 14-year-old girl, discovered during a connected operation in another state. She had been trafficked through online ads and controlled by a man with prior convictions for identity theft and visa fraud. Her case, investigators warned, shows how digital anonymity and immigration loopholes are now being exploited together. Each survivor's story was different, but everyone ended in the same way: silence, fear, and captivity. Within hours of the arrests, the humanitarian response began. Nonprofits such as Freedom Network USA, Safe House, and the Salvation Army Trafficking Response Team mobilized to provide emergency care. Command posts were converted into temporary triage centers, where medical professionals, translators, and trauma counselors worked side by side. Federal officers were instructed to treat every rescued individual as a survivor, not a suspect. Officials emphasized that this shift in tone is critical for victims who have been conditioned to fear law enforcement. Meanwhile, forensic experts began combing through seized electronics and financial records, work that could take months to complete. Each device, officials say, might reveal new accomplices or replacement businesses, already preparing to take over where the last ones fell. The Department of Justice, Homeland Security Investigations, and the IRS Criminal Division have now formed a joint task force to track the money trail and expose every remaining front company. Translators and cyber specialists have been called in to assist with decryption, a process expected to uncover even deeper layers of the network. What investigators have already found suggests the massage parlor ring was only one branch of a much larger enterprise. Forensic teams identified crypto transfers connecting us operations to accounts in East Asia, Canada, and Europe, proof that traffickers are adopting decentralized finance tools once used by drug cartels to move their profits. Undetected. Authorities confirmed that at least a dozen related businesses remain under surveillance, including nail salons, import firms, and wellness centers, believed to be sleeper fronts ready to reopen under new names. And as agents continue decoding encrypted transactions, one question remains at the heart of this expanding case. How far up the global chain does this network really go, and who overseas is still calling the shots? As the investigation deepened, the story began shifting from breaking news headlines to a national wake-up call. Federal analysts now believe that the Chinese-operated massage network was only one piece of a much larger global system of structure mirroring the operations of international drug cartels. Officials said from the start, Operation Coast to Coast was never just about illicit spas. It was about exposing an entire system-wide web of recruitment, transport, and financial manipulation reaching across continents. Data recovered from the seized servers revealed a stunning map of global coordination, recruitment hubs overseas, transportation brokers across North America, and financial handlers scattered through multiple countries. Homeland Security's cyber units traced over 200 shell accounts operating within U.S. banks and fintech platforms. Each account handled hundreds of small, frequent transfers, which were then merged into large corporate accounts abroad. Investigators called it a digital supply chain of exploitation, a criminal logistics network, where every wire transfer represented another life under control. Every digital trail led to a new front company, a new address, another hidden operation still running quietly in plain sight. By late in the week, DHS confirmed active coordination with Interpol and Chinese law enforcement agencies to track down high-level organizers suspected of directing operations from overseas. Intelligence reports identified at least 3 key suspects with direct ties to established organized crime syndicates in China's Fujian and Guangdong provinces. According to Homeland Security analysts, these groups managed recruiters, transporters, and accountants who kept the trafficking machine running with near-military precision. Inside Washington's Joint Command Center, investigators compared the organization's structure to that of a multinational logistics corporation, complete with internal tracking systems, progress reports, and digital dashboards monitoring every U.S. branch. The sophistication left even veteran agents stunned, but what shocked them most wasn't the technology, it was how easily it all blended into legitimate business. Wire transfers labeled as consulting fees slipped past compliance systems. Corporate registrations listed fake managers using stolen identities. Online reviews portrayed these locations as regular wellness spas, while victims lived and worked in captivity behind the walls. Federal analysts estimate the traffickers' annual profits may have exceeded tens of millions of dollars, funneled overseas through otherwise legal banking channels. For context, that's roughly equivalent to the yearly revenue of a mid-sized American franchise chain generated entirely through coercion. When asked why this network managed to operate undetected for so long, Homeland Security officials pointed to weak local oversight and low-level enforcement. Many municipalities had treated such cases as simple code violations rather than federal crimes. That gap, they said, allowed traffickers to rebuild faster than regulators could respond. But this time, rebuilding won't come so as lawmakers across several states are now drafting new regulations designed to close those loopholes. Proposed measures include mandatory background checks for spa license applicants, unannounced inspections, and financial reporting rules for cash-heavy wellness businesses. Advocacy groups say these steps could help unmask trafficking fronts before they root themselves again. Public reaction has been equally intense. Communities surrounding the raided sites have organized vigils for survivors and demanded stricter oversight of commercial tenants. Some residents told reporters they had long suspected something was wrong. Covered windows, vans arriving at odd hours, and staff who never seemed to leave the building. "We saw the signs," one neighbor said. "We just didn't know what was really happening behind those walls." Meanwhile, shelters and nonprofits are struggling to meet demand. Many rescued victims require long-term care, including trauma counseling, legal aid, and translation services. Federal agencies have expedited T visas, allowing survivors of trafficking to stay in the United States as protected witnesses. Officials say each approved visa represents not just safety, but another testimony secured for trial, even as victims begin rebuilding their lives. The network's digital footprints continue to expose new targets. Forensic teams are still analyzing encrypted drives containing ledgers and offshore account keys that could lead to additional indictments under racketeering laws. Agents now believe that multiple front companies are already attempting to rebrand and reopen under different names, waiting for public attention to fade. Often, they're coerced, they're threatened, their passports are taken. One investigator said, "The control never stops." Homeland Security's assessment is clear. Operation Coast to Coast may be only the first chapter of a much longer campaign. One senior official compared it to cutting off the head of a hydra each raid, exposing to more hidden operations waiting to take its place. As prosecutors prepare for the next wave of federal indictments, insiders warn that the real masterminds behind this trafficking empire may still be operating safely from adapting and preparing to strike again. Asterisk in the months that followed, the story shifted from raids and arrests to courtrooms and accountability. Federal prosecutors began laying out what they called the largest human trafficking case of its kind in modern U.S. history. Inside packed federal courts, jurors heard hours of testimony from survivors describing years of coercion, debt, bondage, and relentless fear. Many had arrived in America believing they'd secured honest employment only to have their passports seized the moment they landed. The government's evidence stretched across tens of thousands of pages, bank ledgers, surveillance records, text messages, and hidden camera footage linking managers directly to organized crime financiers overseas. Agents described a hierarchy designed to keep victims silent and profits flowing, with layers of shell companies protecting those at the top. Asterisk, one prosecutor compared the organization to a shadow franchise, a business so sophisticated that even its failures generated revenue through property transfers and tax fraud. Meanwhile, public outrage was reshaping state policy. Governors in at least 5 states introduced new bills expanding anti-trafficking task forces, funding victim support shelters, and requiring digital verification for spa licenses. Lawmakers argued that enforcement alone wouldn't end the crisis, had to be prevention through regulation and awareness. In Washington, congressional hearings grew tense as lawmakers questioned why it had taken years to uncover a network operating in broad daylight. Homeland Security officials admitted the truth. Traditional policing wasn't built for this kind of enemy. These traffickers didn't rely on violence to control victims. They used paperwork, bank transfers, and silence. As more indictments were unsealed, several defendants accepted plea deals in exchange for cooperation, providing investigators with access to encrypted servers and offshore bank records. Those revelations pointed to additional suspects still operating in Asia and Europe, prompting a second phase of international warrants coordinated through Interpol. For survivors, justice moved slower than headlines. Many faced long recoveries, physically free, but still bound by fear. Nonprofits and federal outreach teams worked together to offer language services, therapy, and housing assistance, building a new path forward, one life at a time. Healing isn't measured in arrests, said one outreach director. It's measured in how many people finally feel safe enough to speak. By late autumn, Operation Coast to Coast had officially transitioned into a permanent federal task force, a hybrid of cyber investigators, financial analysts, and human rights specialists, dedicated to dismantling every connected cell. Officials warned that the mission is far from over. They expect copycat operations to surface under new names, new websites, and fresh business licenses. But the difference now, they say, is awareness. Communities, banks, and local law enforcement finally know what to look for. In an address marking the anniversary of the first raids, the Homeland Security Secretary summarized the operation's legacy. This was never just about shutting down illegal businesses. It was about defending the dignity of every person who thought freedom was waiting at the end of a plane ticket. As night falls over cities once dotted with neon spa signs, the lights are dimmer now, but they stand as reminders of a system exposed, of lives reclaimed, and of a nation that finally decided to see what was hidden in plain sight. Asterisk, in the end, the truth didn't just expose a network, it exposed a mirror, a reflection of how silence, greed, and fear can hide behind ordinary walls. But from every broken promise, every stolen dream, came a new kind of strength, the courage to speak, to fight, and to never disappear again.